interesting that they were ambushed enough that 2 people would die, then 4 people, because something seems wrong with, okay, I don't think, I see hands tied, okay, like with rope. So I'm thinking somewhere here, one of them might have, okay, is it being hysterical, trying to calm them down, so it could be that they're holding their wrists. It's like I'm trying to keep you quiet.
Okay.
Okay. But I know that none of these people killed each other.
Okay, how do you know that?
Because I'm trusting. I'm trusting that the people I stand beside are going to look after me.
Oh, that's good. Welcome to Seeing Dead People, the mystery storytelling podcast with a clairvoyant twist. Radio Sydney presents Seeing Dead People, Episode 16, Death in the Dyatlov Pass.
Hello, Nicola. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Are you? You sounded a bit funny there.
Oh, I just had to think for a minute.
What do you mean? You had to think whether you were good or not?
Yeah.
And you came to the conclusion that you might be.
Yeah, I think I came to the conclusion I might be.
Okay, well, here we go. And I think this is going to be, I'm always saying this, but I think this is going to be quite an interesting one. You'll find out soon, and we'll see. Are you able to get the photographs?
Yes, I saw them come in.
All right, well, then we'll roll and see how we do.
Okay.
Okay, great. I'm excited, as always, to talk to you about our episodes. This one's quite unusual, I think, for many ways, and I'll let you know that we're sliding back 62 years in this episode to examine the bizarre and inexplicable events surrounding the mysterious disappearance of 9 experienced backcountry hikers during a winter ski expedition in what is now known as Russia. The members originally consisted of 2 women and 8 men, all students from a local Polytech institute, and all but one aged in their early 20s. I know, 2 and 8 equal 10, not 9. My math's not off, Darcy. It's just that one young man began to suffer from sciatica partway into the trip, and he decided to return home, a decision that both saved and haunted him for the rest of his life. The inexplicable injuries and baffling manner in which the 9 athletic folks perished have spun a myriad of conspiracy theories over the last 6 decades, but we'll get to those later. So now, Darcy, let's take a moment to orient ourselves. It's 1959. The Cold War continues, and like our outdoorsy group of 9, we're skiing into the frigid dead of winter on the slopes of the Ural Mountains in the Siberian wilderness during the dog days of February. Now, Darcy, long after doing the research and picking this event to discuss with Seeing Dead People, I realized the fact that we're dealing with folks who spoke Russian might prove difficult for you. But I figured, hey ho, let's give it a shot. So what do you think?
Well, the good part is that since I have customers that are of different language, I have learned that spirit will hold up cue cards and allow me to see the messages through the cue cards or images. Sometimes they actually change the word on the other side for me, so that should be fine.
Okay. Well, I remember you have mentioned to me in the past this sort of cue card idea, so I'll be really fascinated for you perhaps to reveal a little bit about what's going on in your head, even more than you normally do in this episode.
Alrighty.
So let's look at our first photograph, Darcy. It's a black and white picture of 8 of the members of the group during the beginning of their trek. The 9th member is taking the photograph. So have a look there, Darcy. What do you see and feel in photograph number 1?
Well, I feel the excitement of the adventure.
Do you?
Yeah. And I feel like Well, there's people on skis, there's a sled with a horse, and it just looks like, like you said, the beginning of the trip, and they're all working in earnest with each other.
Sounds good. Okay, so we're talking unpredictable weather, heavy drifting snow, massive looming mountains, and deep, dark forests frequented by reindeer, wolverines, and lynx, all surrounding an inhospitable frozen area which is now known as the Dyatlov Pass. This is the forbidding environment our small group decided to tackle during their 3-week skiing adventure. Their ultimate goal, Darcy, was to reach Mount Ortonten. I'm not quite sure how it's pronounced, which ironically some claim in the local indigenous language means don't go there. I wish these young folks hadn't. Now, I know I haven't given you much more to work with, Darcy, but I'm curious, are you experiencing any more ideas from Siberia?
Well, I'm experiencing the fact that because there's snow on the ground, I can feel the cold, I can hear the chatter, and I feel, and I might be jumping ahead here, but I sort of feel like the fear is a group fear.
Oh, okay.
Not just a single fear, like not just one person maybe who died.
Okay. You're thinking the group is in peril.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in late February, when the hikers were many days overdue in returning, an extensive search party was launched. While cross-country skiing along the slope of a mountain nicknamed Death of all things gives you a sense of what the locals think of that area, one member spotted the corner of a tent sticking out from the deep snow. What the searchers found after digging out the shelter shocked and disturbed them, and indeed, Darcy, has shocked and disturbed everyone who takes a look into this strange event. So have a gander now at our second photograph, Darcy. It's a black and white photograph of the hiker's tent as it was found, nearly covered in snow. Inside, the search party found numerous objects, including 4 cameras, knapsacks, diaries, paper, money, in fact, pretty well all of the group's personal belongings, including, and this is really intriguing, a pile of their winter boots. So, Darcy, have a look at photo number 2 and tell us what you feel and see.
Okay, photo number 2. I see skis standing up. I see 2 people looking at the tent, and the tent is covered a little in snow.
Yep.
I wasn't sure if someone's buried here, but because I get the image of a cross, the kind you see on the side of the road. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 figures in spirit, so at least 4 of them are dead. But what's interesting is I'm not sure they died here.
Okay, can you elaborate a little bit?
Well, I'm not feeling... When someone dies at a scene of a crime or an accident, there's this energy wave that you can feel, and you get this overwhelming sense of panic and shock. And I'm not picking it up here, but I do have spirit here looking at the tent.
Okay, can you identify anything about the spirits, or is it too early?
Well, 3 of them are male. One's a female because of that. And one may have been prone to being having facial hair, like a beard or mustache.
Okay.
And the other 2, like the other 2 males, I'm not really feeling, but I can see the female.
Okay.
I feel like there's always been like a dark cloud over this area. Like this wouldn't be the first time someone either went missing or died in this area.
Okay, well, as I mentioned earlier, based on the term for the local mountain being don't go there and another mountain called death, it seems to me that this might be a troublesome area, yeah. Okay, well, I will tell you, their first strange discovery was that the side of the tent had been slashed. suggesting that it had been cut open quickly as an escape route. The situation became even more curious when the search party examined the nearby surroundings and discovered footprints leading down the slope away from the tent towards the edge of a nearby woods. Perhaps not too odd at first glance, but after a careful examination, it was revealed another unsettling situation. The footprints appeared to be made by either bare or socked feet. Now remember, Darcy, we're in Siberia, in the middle of February, sub-zero temperatures, snow up the yin-yang, and the searchers find evidence that the hikers sprinted from the tent too quickly to pull on their winter boots. Their 9 bodies were eventually discovered, but not all at the same time. I'll be briefly mentioning the names of our little expedition troop to start, but later we're going to meet them one by one. Initially, the searchers found the remains of a small fire pit, evidence of branches cut, but much too wet for firewood, but they also found dry twigs and other easily burned materials nearby. All this kind of work was more than 2 individuals they guessed to have taken it on, and interestingly, the knife used for cutting the branches has never been found. So, as evidenced by the cut branches, somebody had climbed one of the trees nearby up to 15 or more feet. The question is, to do what? Look around for help? Escape something below? So we're going to get an idea of kind of the lay of the land here, Darcy, in photograph number 3. Have a look. It's a schematic. It's kind of complicated. It's a hand-created schematic map showing the location and the events. But remember, Darcy, no one knows what actually happened during this strange catastrophe. But let's take a moment to walk through this photo number 3.
Okay.
You'll see. Go ahead. If you got some ideas, let's have them.
Well, first of all, I sort of felt like they're running away from people.
Okay.
Like, I feel like, and it's weird because they're not like Russian soldiers they're running away from, but I do feel like that's the feeling, like I'm being pursued by a person.
Okay.
Or is it really a person, or did they think it was a UFO sighting? Okay, we'll have to look at that one a little bit more for a minute.
Sure, we will.
Looking at the map, you can see how they run, I guess that's north, and where the tree is. Do you know if there are bullets in them, or if they died of freezing bullets? There's bullets, right?
No, no bullets.
Well, what's making the circular hole in them?
Well, you tell me. I don't know.
Okay, because sort of a screwdriver, I would have said that was a bullet hole.
Okay, well, you're seeing all kinds of stuff. Let me go through this little map so you can get a better sense of what they think these individuals did, not necessarily what happened. But it seems like, as I have that little kind of a logo on the upper or middle of the left-hand side, if you look for number 1, the little blue triangle is their tent. The number 2 is the red line leading away down the slope, away from the tent, towards the little cedar tree. And you'll see the little blue dots are actually the footprints that were actually discovered. So it seems to me like they were terrified. Something forced them to panic and cut themselves out of their tent and take off. Most of them were half dressed and almost all were shoeless. So way over to the far right is the little cedar tree, number 3. That's where it appears the group stopped and kind of got to safety and started to gather some wood. Number 4, right nearby, is kind of a yellow icon that looks like fire. That's where they had the little campfire that was discovered. Now you'll notice right to the left of the little fire are 2 crosses, which depict where the first 2 bodies were found. And they were found this this day when they first discovered the tent. Then we have number 5, which is a little bit of a blue line. That's a creek running through a ravine. And this is where 4 other bodies were found. There are 4 crosses running along this creek ravine. Number 6 is a ring, an orange-colored ring. And this depicts the spot where the remaining members dug a den or deep shelter in the snow. Number 7 is a line moving back to an orange line moving back towards the tent with 3 more crosses representing the last 3 members perishing as they're trying to return to the tent. That's what is thought happened.
Okay, I would agree with that, but interesting that they were ambushed enough that 2 people would die, then 4 people, because something seems wrong with, okay, I don't think, I see hands tied, okay, like with rope, so I'm thinking somewhere here, one of them might have, okay, is it being hysterical, trying to calm them down, so it could be that they're holding their wrists. It's like I'm trying to keep you quiet.
Okay.
Okay. But I know that none of these people killed each other.
Okay, how do you know that?
Because I'm trusting. I'm trusting that the people I stand beside are going to look after me.
Oh, that's good. There are many, many more photos available on the web, but they're all under copyright. And so if our listeners want to see graphic images of these frozen victims and their surroundings in situ, fill your boots, you can find them. But I thought we'd be better off visiting with each person and seeing what each individual might reveal to you, Darcy. So since we have 9 people to discuss, I'm going to simplify their identification by mostly using just Christian names. I don't want to mispronounce their lovely Russian last names. So now we're going to just check and meet each one of them one by one, Darcy, and see what they might be able to tell you. Okay?
All right.
So up front, we have 2 young men, both named Yuri. So I'm referring to them by using Yuri as the first name and then the first letter of their last name. So if you look in photograph number 4, we have our first victim, Yuri D. Now this young man was 21. He was found on February 27th, 1959, near the cedar tree at the edge of the forest. He was frozen, face up. He wore unmatched woolen socks. He had no boots. His hand, foot, and temple were burnt. He was lightly clothed. He had multiple bruises, damaged tissue, bloody face. His fingers and toes were so damaged and frostbitten, all would have required amputation had he lived. The cause of death was determined eventually for Yuri D as hypothermia with blunt trauma. The temperatures at the time that this young man died and that they were on the expedition were estimated at between minus 25 to minus 30 Celsius. So in those frigid conditions, skin can freeze within 10 minutes. So what do you think about Yuri?
Well, I think he was a very industrious and mainly courageous young gentleman. He did like his adventure, but this one was more than he felt. I'm not feeling this, like if I was looking for someone who was violent, this is not the person I'd be looking for. I'm not saying he couldn't stand up for himself, but he is terrified. The energy of fear on him is so strong and the need to survive, and yet I would have told you he realized that was never going to happen.
Really? So you can feel that he's petrified, but at the same time understanding that this could be the end.
Yeah.
Wow.
His head injuries, I want to say I feel like it's the butt of something that hit him.
The butt of something?
Yeah, like butt of a gun, the butt of a axe. I feel like it's something wooden that hit him, not plastic.
Okay. Okay, cool. Anything else from Yuri?
Well, I know he would have given anything to be warm, but I also feel like there's so much regret about what life could have held. But I'm still feeling like, I don't feel like I know who attacked me, but I can feel this sense of, if I don't get away from them, I'm going to be dead, and better to be dead on my own than to be dead the way they would have done it. Because I know it sounds really gross, but I would have said they'd be skinned alive.
Now, how in the world would you get that impression?
Because that's what he's showing me.
And how is he showing you that?
Literally, like I had just taken a steer, hung it up, and skinned it.
Oh, you're kidding. No. Wow. Okay. Wow. Well, we'll keep following that. That's really interesting. Really an insightful idea. I can't imagine that you can see that from this photograph.
Well, there's also the young man beside him, and it could be that they're just showing me they used to go out hunting. I don't know, but all I know is I see a deer and I'm skinning it.
Okay, well, and all I'm showing you, for those listeners who haven't had a chance to look at the photographs, and they will be, the rest of these photographs will be the same, is just a simple headshot in black and white of each one of these individuals. So let's move to the second fellow named Yuri. He's Yuri K. He was 23, so just a couple of years older. He was a bit of a jokester. He loved to play the mandolin. He was found the same day nearby, so again near the cedar tree, the first two crosses that we saw when we went to number 3. He was again frozen face up. He was lightly clothed as well. He didn't have a sock on his right foot or leg, and he had chewed off one of his knuckles. The backs of his hands suffered third-degree burns. He had multiple skin injuries. Of course, he was frostbitten skin, and his cause of death was later determined to be hypothermia.
I'm not all familiar with hypothermia, but doesn't it cause delirium?
It can definitely cause delirium, absolutely, and hallucinations.
Okay, so there could be a chance that these two young men, because they died around the same place, may have thought the one was killing the other, like was out to get them.
Yep, it's certainly possible.
The impression I get of Yuri K is he would have been fun to be around, someone who always could bring a smile to your face and warmth to your heart.
So he does...
And I would have also said really close to family and friends. But to say I feel paranoid, like whatever scared me so bad that I'm willing to run out with nothing on.
Exactly. So you get that from Yuri K as well?
Oh, yeah. Again, I'm picking up. It sort of makes my stomach a little nauseous.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm picking up that whatever scared them, like a ball of fire, okay? Like, you know, the fire was out of control and coming right for you.
Yep.
That's how afraid I am. Like, it's like a train wreck. I can't get out of the way.
Wow. That's a level of terror I've never experienced and don't ever want to have to.
Yeah.
Okay, well, obviously things are already looking a bit on the weird side, but that's just the start of the abnormal circumstance.
Okay.
These two snow-covered bodies were found side by side, deliberately placed next to one another. Later, an autopsy revealed that Yuri D was positioned after death. Outer clothing for both of the men were missing, suggesting that the others stripped them off before laying them together for their eternal rest. So that's a bit bizarre, isn't it?
Well, no, and none of them have proper clothes on. They're going to take what clothes they can and for warmth.
But it gives us an idea of time passing.
Yes, but it also gives me an idea of the compassion that people have for them by laying them side by side.
Yes, and that goes back to your earlier comment where you said trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, they trusted each other with their lives.
Yes.
Okay, well then let's go to the next photograph, photograph number 6. Meet Igor. He's 23. He was a skilled mechanic and keen as a bean on anything to do with space and Sputnik. His name is now synonymous with this strange mystery. It's now generally referred to in regular parlance as the Dyatlov incident or the Dyatlov Pass incident. He was found on the same day as the two Yuris, but about 300 meters away, again face up. His fists were clenched. His jacket was unbuttoned. He was wearing pants and ski pants, but no boots, different socks. He had suffered as well multiple superficial wounds, abrasions, bruises, especially on his right hand. Later, this was thought to suggest that he might have been in a physical fight with someone. He had no internal injuries, however, and his wristwatch stopped at 5:31. His cause of death was also hypothermia. So, Darcy, does Igor have much to tell you?
Well, again, I'm going to say this is probably going to come up with most of them.
Right.
But maybe the girl who's a little devious sitting beside him. So far, the boys, for me, are very gentle souls, very much the life of seeing where nature will take them, energetic. And in his case, again, I'm not sure if the fight is with another person. I would say it's very feasible he's the one who went up the tree.
Oh, that would be a good reason why he'd have scuffed up backs of his hand.
Yeah, now I do have a question which is taking us back to the other two boys.
Sure, go for it.
I keep wanting to connect this to a UFO.
Okay.
Or to, well, we call them Sasquatch here, but what would they be called there?
They would be called a Yeti.
Okay, or a Yeti sighting.
Okay.
But I would say, too, I still see a rifle, but not the same kind of rifle that it would be if I was in a war.
Okay, well, I don't think they had weapons, which kind of surprises me since there were lynx and wolverines around, but I don't think I came across any sign or mention of weapons.
Oh, I'm not saying it was their weapons.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
No, I didn't mean to imply they had weapons. I said I see a weapon.
Okay, what does the weapon look like that you see?
It looks like a revolver, long, narrow shaft, wooden handle. Looks like there's a bird or something on the handle. I also see a rifle, but I would say it's more like a 22. It's not a Winchester, though. It's got a Yugoslavian name on it.
A Yugoslavian name?
Yeah.
And how do you know it's Yugoslavian?
They wrote Yugoslavian on the rifle.
And who's writing this for you?
The boys.
So Igor and the two Yuris are working together now to tell you this stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. And you're able to understand, even though they're obviously talking to you in Russian, you're somehow getting it translated so that you can understand it in your head.
Yes, because when they showed the rifle, they showed a picture of a rifle, and then they wrote Yugoslavia on it. And then they painted the tree a little better than your tree.
Okay.
Because it was a pine tree they went up.
Say that again. It was a what tree?
A pine tree.
You know, that's such an insightful comment. I'm gonna talk about that right now, Darcy, because it's so neat of you to say that. In the little drawing that we have, it's called a cedar tree. And I kept it as that because it says that in the little drawing. But in much of the other literature, it's always called a pine tree.
Oh, that's what they showed me.
Wow.
They showed me the tree, and on it was pine.
How the heck could you know that? That's amazing.
If they drew a picture.
Do you get a sense of why Igor might have climbed that tree?
I am looking like I'm scouting. I'm looking to see which is the best direction I can go in.
So he was up there to find an escape route.
Yeah. But again, do you have any, did you know they have, did one of them, or I guess they wouldn't have top 10 anyone but me, I keep seeing a ball of light. And it's weird because I want to say it's a fire, but it doesn't feel like a fire.
Okay, well, keep that going, keep that rolling as a ball, because we'll eventually get there.
Okay.
Okay, great. This is you are so cool, Darcy. It's so amazing. So let's go to photo number 7, and we're going to meet the first of the 2 young women.
All right.
This is Zenaida. She's 22. Described as being popular, energetic, and outgoing. She and Yuri D, as in Douglas, were once a couple, but had recently split. She was found the same day. She was face down, about 630 meters from, let's call it the pine tree now, better dressed than those nearer the pine tree. So she wore 2 hats, undershirts, sweaters, pants, ski pants, 3 pairs of socks, but sadly no boots. Zenaida had multiple bruises, abrasions, minor wounds, frostbitten fingers, and an inexplicable large bruise in her lumbar, lower back area. Her cause of death was eventually determined to be, again, hypothermia, but as a result of a violent accident. So I'm impressed that 2 gals went out with 8 men myself, actually. So does Zenaida give you any idea or insights as to what's happened here?
I'm glad you told me that she had been an item with Yuri D.
Yep.
Okay, because I would have said on this expedition she was shagging someone. Okay.
Okay.
So she had, part of the reason she went on this was, I think she was hoping to make him jealous and that he would take her back.
Oh, okay. So then you think she's shagging somebody other than Yuri D, because we know they were recently broken up.
Yeah. And personally, she should have stayed home, but she was there, and it was a case of jealousy. Okay. Now, again, I'm not seeing any of these guys attacking her.
Okay.
But being attacked is definitely a word here that would be used on her.
Okay.
Okay, but interesting enough, whoever did it didn't really care about her because he left her face down.
Now there's an interesting comment.
If they had cared about the way the person was spawned, she would have been face up just like the guys.
I hadn't thought of that. That's a good point. Interesting. Okay. Do you get a sense of panic from Zenaida?
Oh, yeah. Huge panic, like I'm running for my life.
Oh.
And there's nothing I can do about it.
These poor people. My God.
It had to have been terrifying. I couldn't imagine being in that situation.
Oh, okay. Well, we still got a few of them to go through. So let's go to photo number 8 and say hello to a fellow named Rustum.
Oh, first I have to find photo number 8.
Okay.
See, one of the things about being cold like this, it feels bone-weary cold.
Ah.
Like I can barely move.
Yeah, so you're starting to feel the effects of what they experienced, Darcy.
I am. It's like this overwhelming sense of I'm never going to get warm again. These 2 were an item.
Rustum and Zenaida?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, Rustum was a shy guy, a serious runner. His body wasn't found for a few days after the first group were found, and he was about 500 meters away from the pine tree. He was also face down, covered in snow. He was better dressed than anybody else previously found. He had multiple upper and lower layers of clothing on him, 4 pairs of socks. He had 1 boot. His wounds included the same kind of bruising, abrasions, blood, badly damaged face. and one significantly odd and serious injury. Poor Rustum had a fractured skull with bleeding on both sides of his brain. His watch stopped at 8:45. Now, Darcy, Rustum seems to have suffered physically more extensively than the others. What do you see or hear about his final minutes?
Well, first of all, he's really glad it's over. Second, I would say that his final minutes were, he might have been the target all along.
Repeat that?
I'm sort of feeling like he may have been the target all along.
Oh, the target. Okay.
You know, that whoever did this was after him. But everyone else is collateral damage because they just happened to be there.
And what gives you that sense?
Because of the brutality and because I feel like I know the person now that's chasing me.
And you want to keep that to yourself for a while, or are you going to tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I sort of feel male, okay, and I feel as though I've talked about something I shouldn't have. Like I've given information to people. Was he a spy?
I couldn't tell you, and I doubt they knew one way or the other.
Awful young for being one.
Yeah, awfully young.
But still recruitable.
Yes, oh, surely they could have recruited people much younger, of course.
All right. But it could just be that now that he knows who the people were chasing him, and again, I keep seeing this ball of light, and it's not a headlight. We really have to stress that. It's not a headlight.
Okay. Okay.
I keep seeing it, so I don't know what it is, whether it's not a flashlight, it's a different kind of light.
Okay, well, you keep seeing that light, so we'll just keep on going through it and see what comes out with the rest of them.
Okay.
Okay, so after this group was found, the search continued, but nothing else was found for about 2 more months. Then in May, a local discovered a trail in the now melting snow and some bits of their clothing. And on the 5th, searchers found the snow den, about 70 meters from the pine tree. The surviving 4 hikers had dug deep into a creek ravine to be protected from the elements. The den's floor of ice and snow was covered in cedar branches in an obvious attempt by the group to avoid lying directly on the frozen ground. Now, the bodies of the final 4 members of what is now called the Dyatlov group were discovered a few feet outside of the den, in a small area measuring only about 4 square meters. They were all lying on the bottom of a running creek, and all suffered damage to their faces and heads. Searchers also noticed some clothes hanging off the branches as though to dry. These were removed from the dead bodies of their hiking buddies. So, Darcy, now we're going to meet the final 4 victims. If you look at photo number 9, we meet the second young woman, Ludmila. She was only 20, the youngest of the group. She had a reputation for being stern and without humor. She wore extra clothing, including the deceased Yuri K's sweater. She had underwear, 2 pairs of pants, socks. She also had a bit of sweater wrapped around her left foot, obviously to try and prevent it from being frostbitten. Like the others, she had many bruises and abrasions, but Ludmila also suffered multiple broken ribs and a massive heart hemorrhage. Even more distressing, her eyeballs and tongue were missing, and she was found on her knees, her face and chest shoved into a rock. Her cause of death was very distressing, a hemorrhage into her heart's right atrium, plus multiple rib fractures and internal bleeding. So poor Ludmila, seems to me, Darcy, suffered even more trauma than our young Rustum. Can you shed any light on her and her last hours, Darcy?
Oh, well, when you talk about it,
Yep.
some of what's missing could be elemental, okay? But I definitely feel that, again, there's got to be a man here somewhere. There has to be a really live human. Some of it, I feel so confused and out of focus with her.
Okay.
That I think her fear was more than she could handle, so she had to retreat into a little valley of her own brain just to hold the fear at bay.
Wow.
By the time she died, she was accepting this death. She was welcoming it with open arms because she was done.
Oh.
Yeah. And the last thing I feel like is she wanted her mom to know that she was okay.
Really?
Her last concern was of her parents, not of herself.
Wow, isn't that sweet?
Not them being knowing where she was and what had happened.
Right.
So.
Yes, and very sad because she wasn't found for almost 2.5 months, from February, end of February to the beginning of May. So her parents would have been worrying about her all that time.
Well, there was that hope that she survived.
Of course.
And it's almost like someone laid in wait, waiting for them to come out of the den. They must have known they were there somewhere because that's what it feels like. And it's not, and it really has to stress, this is not a group of men. This feels like a solo incident.
When you say solo incident, you mean a solo individual undertaking this sabotage of these people and then the murder of them?
Yes. And this feels like a crime of opportunity.
Really?
Like they must have known they were doing this, because to stumble upon them in the middle of nowhere would be like 1 in a million sort of idea.
Right. But then what does our killer get from this, Darcy? Is it just a psychopath?
Yeah, excitement.
Excitement. You can feel that?
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of what this individual looks like or acts like?
I would say, given that I'm 5'10", he's about my height, 5'10", maybe 6 feet, athletic, dark hair, and when I say dark, it's either dark brown or black.
Right.
Okay, physically active, so he has to be an outdoorsman. And I would say that these aren't the first people he's ever killed. First group that he's tortured, but not the first people.
And how do you get a sense of that?
I don't know how to explain it.
Oh, okay.
It's just this feeling that this is his first group. This is his premiere.
Wow. So you get a sense of excitement and satisfaction from this person?
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
And what I also feel is I should have taken more time with the rest.
Oh, you're kidding.
Nope.
Jesus.
Should have taken more time with the rest.
Wow. That's just, oh my God, that's awful.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, well, I know this is tough, but we got a few more people to go through. So let's go to photo number 10. This gentleman is called Semyon, and he was 37, so much, much older than the rest. He was wearing 2 hats, a scarf, shirts, sweater, a heavy coat, underclothes, 2 pairs of pants, a pair of ski pants, and extra socks. So he obviously was better dressed than some and obviously took some clothing from some. Surprisingly, as it's assumed the group couldn't wait to put on their boots to sprint from the tent for safety, Semyon had a camera around his neck. He was also holding a pen and a notepad, but the notepad was blank. And quirkily enough, it disappeared from the investigation, so someone nicked it and it's not been seen since. Like Ludmilla, his eyeballs were missing. Plus, he had bone and tissue around his left eye exposed. He had an open wound on his skull, and again, like Ludmilla, he had multiple broken ribs. For him, all those injuries were on his right side. His cause of death was traumatic chest injuries. So, does Semyon tell you anything?
Well, some of it is from falling.
Okay.
Some is again from like a sharp object being hit against me, like a flat object. And some is animal damage.
Okay, yes, and I think that's fairly evident for probably the facial issues.
Yeah.
Wow.
The camera should have had a picture on it, because I feel like he was able to take a picture.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a little bit. That's an
Right?
interesting point. There were 4 cameras found in the tent, as well as the camera around his neck.
Was it tied in a knot?
I couldn't tell you that. Sorry.
Okay.
I can't see the photograph close enough to get that kind of a detail.
Well, he was a lover of life, fearful of his death, but also to the point that he was accepting it.
So he too went through the same horrific panic mode?
Yeah.
Does he see the light?
I'm still getting a light, so
Okay.
that's the light. I just don't know what kind of light it is.
Okay. Well, we have 2 more to go. Maybe we'll get some little information on that. So the second last victim is shown in photograph number 11. This is Alexander. He was 24. He was studying nuclear physics, obviously a bright young man. He also was very well clothed, but he didn't have a hat. He didn't have any shoes, and his ski jacket was unbuttoned and unzipped. Now, this is minus 25 Celsius. His injuries included missing eyebrows, exposed skull bones, a flattened nose, a wound behind his ear, a badly damaged neck, and a bleeding knee. His cause of death was hypothermia, and there was no explanation for his other dramatic physical traumas like the wound behind the ear and his injured neck. So his injuries are kind of puzzling. Can you tell us anything that Alexander is letting you know about?
First, again, I want to come back to, were these kids involved in sabotage, something that would put them in the light of someone? Because I'm sort of leaning a little more there. Second, this is about torture.
Okay, well, the answer to the first, as far as I know, these were just regular run-of-the-mill students at a polytech, taking a variety of courses, not all like terrifically close friends necessarily, but they were all very interested in being outdoorsy. They were acquaintances, some close friends, obviously. So it has no sense that they were spies or saboteurs or doing anything other than going on an outdoor adventure.
Okay, then could there be any chance that they discovered something while they were at Polytech? That I feel like it's something they've seen or done that brings us to
the massacre?
The pivotal part as to why they are like they are.
Okay, well, we can maybe discuss. We'll come to something like that a little bit later. But right at the top of my head, from the documents and stuff, not necessarily no.
Okay.
Okay, so
yeah.
The last victim was a 23-year-old called Nicholas. He was one of the best insulated, i.e. he had the most clothing on of all the hikers. He had several layers of clothes. He had fur and woolen hats on. He had underclothes on, a sweater, a fur jacket, sweatpants, pants, ski pants, full woolen socks, and felt boots, which were the boots that they all wore, and they were ideally suited to the conditions. So he actually somehow had his boots on. He wore 2 wristwatches, interestingly enough. One might have been one of the others that he took, but I don't know that. One stopped at 8:14. The other stopped at 8:39. So, sadly, Nicholas suffered a massive head fracture, which is considered too traumatic to be caused by just a fall. But it's more likely needing a force with greater speed or impact. His cause of death was a traumatic brain injury. So again, he suffered badly compared to some of the other ones. What happened, Darcy?
Well, definitely. Okay, well, we're well established that this is either another person or an alien being that has beat the crap out of them. It's like I'm trying to get information. And this isn't like a kidnap ransom type of information. This is something pertinent. as though maybe the person that was chasing them was a little unbalanced.
Okay.
Thinking that you've come to pick me up. Why are you here? I originally want to rule out military, but maybe I can't. Maybe it was a case of wrong place, wrong time for all of these kids.
Yep.
And the fact that they hid from their captors for a few days must have irritated them to no end.
Yeah.
But this is all about a beating here. This is about rage.
Wow. Wow. Well, we've gone through the deaths of all 9 victims, and as we know, they didn't die in the same location. They didn't even die at the same time. Whatever they experienced obviously was horrific, and you're outlining that and reaffirming that. In the end, the 9 are honored by a tomb in Yekaterinburg, and it's topped by a distinctive headstone. So have a look at photograph 13, and you'll see this is where we got all our little pictures of our headshots. This is the tombstone for this group of individuals who died in 1959 in these very bizarre circumstances. You may not be able to get anything from a slab of concrete, but you might.
Well, one of the things I would say is that they're resting in peace. The other is that they should have put this where they died, because it doesn't have as much significance to them where it is now, but It would have had more significance to where they died.
Right. It's actually not at all where they died. It's down in Yekaterinburg. And in fact, not all of them are even buried at that site. A couple of them are buried elsewhere.
Yeah. I'm not really picking up. I feel the recognition for all of them. But my feeling is this would have been better placed to where they died to remind people to be careful.
Right. Okay. Well, let's just review some of the odd elements involved. So, asphyxiation is much more common as a death from an avalanche than hypothermia. Why did our 9 hikers run off half-clothed, without footwear, into freezing elements? Why were they so terrified? Who or what were they trying to flee? So after hearing all of this, Darcy, it's not surprising to learn there are dozens of conspiracy theories about how these 9 people met their unusual and seemingly incomprehensible end. Now we know nobody wanted to accept that they could have died solely from the brutality of nature and the ho-hum demise of basic hypothermia. Like the sudden or strange deaths of famous people, Lady Di, Michael Jackson, Prince. We find it hard as individuals to believe the mundane but probable solution, and we're looking for something much more dramatic. So, and of course there are pretty wild conspiracy theories about death in the Dyatlov Pass. So let's move from the ridiculous to the possibly relevant, but maybe not ridiculous, Darcy, because you mentioned it early on. Some feel they were attacked and massacred by the Yeti, the giant ape-like abominable snowmen, or, Darcy, by aliens.
Well, those would be my 2 choices, preferably over military personnel.
Okay, then how do they tie into your one individual full of rage?
I don't know, because I keep feeling this rage. And, if it was a Yeti, I could see it being one Yeti.
Right.
But when you look at it, it's got to be a person because of the way they place them.
Well, maybe not. I might be able to help you there. Let's try the scenario of saying this is what some think actually happened. The group is in the tent. They're sleeping, so they're already slightly underclothed, and they aren't wearing their boots. It's dark. Okay? So something happens. In a panic, they have to get out of the tent. They blast out of the tent without putting on any clothing, extra clothing, and they run for safety. They run towards the forest. They stop there. Something happens. They might get separated in the dark. One doesn't know. But 2 die. Then 4 die. Then 3, the last 3 died. But At some point in time, some of them were hiding in a den. So a little bit of time went by. They had, like, it didn't all happen in a fell swoop. So it's very complicated. Maybe, your ideas of, I don't know. I mean, can it be an alien going on for days or a raging person? Not days, perhaps for hours. I don't know. They don't say how long they might have been in the den. But does that help you think of anything?
Well, they were in the den at least 4 days.
Okay, how do you know that?
Because that's the number I see in my head. When you said no one knows how long they were in the den, I saw 4 days.
Okay, so they were hiding away, trying to keep safe in a den for 4 days.
Yeah, and I can feel the carbon monoxide because there wasn't like a hole to let the air out.
Right.
So they came out because they were beginning to be delirious.
Right.
And whoever was waiting for them was very patient.
Wow. Kind of a long time kind of hunter, eh? Those kinds of people sit around and wait for game to come.
Yep.
I don't like those kind of people. Okay. Well, that's you like two of the what I would have thought initially were the wildest theories, and that was the Yeti or aliens. Another theory is that they were murdered by the local Mansai, they're called, the local indigenous people who survived by hunting and fishing and reindeer herding. This possibility was actually investigated at the time, with authorities arresting and interrogating several Mansi, but in the end there was no motive found and no incriminating evidence found against them. Now we come to a very interesting possibility, Darcy, and it struck you the entire time. Some locals claim to have seen odd lights, balls of fire, in the night sky at the time. Was it a comet or was it a secret explosion?
I'm leaning to secret explosion.
Okay. Now, it could have been an explosion of an alien arriving, possibly, or it could have been what many feel is the real answer, is that, again, you hinted towards this, the students stumbled into some kind of top secret military experiment, a possible testing, let's say, of nuclear weapons. And the whole event was a state-sponsored cover-up.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
So you like that idea?
That is the best idea ever.
But then again, how do you get back to the one individual full of rage?
Because the one individual full of rage is probably the person running the organization of doing the experimentation, and to be actually caught out and if they had just left them alone, they would have been fine. The kids had no idea what the heck was going on.
Right.
But because someone had to go to pee in the middle of the night and had to wake everyone.
You think that's what happened?
Yep. And if he had just gone for his pee, kept his eyes closed, gone back to bed, he would have been fine.
But what happened instead?
Instead, he woke up people, everyone saw it, and then there was, let's get out of here, but then they found the tent and had to go looking for them.
So you believe all of this happened because one of the members had to go to the bathroom, left the tent, and triggered the whole event?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Well, the Russian government in 2019, amazingly enough, reopened the investigation. And they only looked at 3 possibilities. None of them, what we've just recently discussed, all were weather-related. So they thought it was either an avalanche, a falling slab of hard-packed snow, or a hurricane. In the end, they decided a year later that it was an avalanche, that they were taken over by the snow while they were sleeping, thus the lack of clothing and boots, that they ripped the tent open and ran to safety, got separated in the dark. One group built a fire. Some of them tried to return to the tent. The others built a den. In the end, they all froze to death, and their soft tissues, as you mentioned, like their eyes and tongue, would have been eaten by scavengers. Now this... Okay. Go ahead.
What a pile of crap.
Sorry, say that again?
What a pile of crap.
Good for you. Well,
if they had been in an avalanche, they would have been frozen in place, not bludgeoned and knocked down, face down, laid together. That's not how an avalanche works.
exactly right. In fact, of course, this doesn't explain any of the severe injuries sustained by Ludmilla, Nicholas, Alexander, and Semyon. It doesn't factor in that they recovered and swapped clothing from their dead friends.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense because both Igor and Semyon were very experienced professional ski instructors and hikers and outdoorsy guys. They wouldn't have camped anywhere where they had a possible risk of an avalanche. And historically, this is not a location where avalanches occur.
Yeah, this is not an avalanche. Oh, I'm about to say this is a government cover-up.
So that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and if I get visited by the Russians, you're in trouble.
Okay, yes. Niet, Soviet, I know. We could be in trouble here, both of us. So the answer to the mystery of what happened in February 59, Darcy, to the 9 hikers in Dyatlov Pass may never be known, although I think you've got some proximity to what might have happened. I really had never myself thought of the idea that somebody would, logically go outside to do a little bit of personal business, maybe notice something that that person wasn't expected to see and triggered some panic on the part of the secret experimental folks. Maybe that's what part of the cause of the explosion was. Who the heck knows? But what we do know, and you mentioned this, the groups experienced something horrific. They took care of one another, and they battled for survival together. That took remarkable friendship and courage, and those are inspiring qualities we should all admire.
They are, and I am goosebumps from head to toe for that one.
Oh, wow, good. Now, I'm going to show you at the very end, before we stop, the last photo taken by one of the hikers. I can't tell you if it was the hiker who had it around his neck. Can't find that out. But have a look at photo number 14. It's a bit ethereal. It's really actually spooky, so it's right up your alley. Have a look. What is the light in that weird photograph, Darcy?
Well, one is a spirit, but the other one strikes me as being someone dressed in all in white that I'm trying to hide my identity. And this is someone taking a picture of them as well.
Okay, wait a second here. You're saying that this photograph, which is really dark with a blurry blob of large amount of white on the left-hand side up to the top, and then a pure circular light, white, sort of in the bottom right, you're saying that is an image of someone dressed in white. You know how they do when they sort of hide in the wilderness, in snow, they wear white?
Yeah.
And then they're taking a picture of the person who's taking a picture?
Yeah. But here's this. If you look at all the blobs, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 blobs.
I can see that. Yes, I would agree with you. Are you counting the one that's alone on the right-hand side?
Yeah.
Okay.
And these would be the spirit of the people who are dead.
Wow. Well, that's a statement.
And that shows me that there was always one person standing to the side taking a picture.
Yep.
So that's the one blob. And the other ones were always in the picture.
Right. Just like the very first picture we saw of them in the line on the snow in a trail.
Yep. And if you look at it, it's sort of similar to the way they were, where they lined up and there was the horse and buggy or carriage, and then there were the people behind.
Exactly, just like our very first picture.
Yeah. So this very likely could have been an impression of what was going to happen to them, too, when they first set out.
Wow, it's like bookends.
It is.
That's really spooky.
Yeah.
That's just an amazing, I have to say it's a coincidence because I picked the first and last pictures to show you, and yet you've been able to tie them together as being almost like mirror images of each other.
They are. And the thing is that souls are at rest now.
Well, oh, that is good, because my God, they went through a horrific time.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, Darcy, that was that was very interesting. It was such a bizarre tragedy. I guess I'm not surprised at how it's so captivating and mystifying for anyone who sticks their nose into it.
Yeah. And the thing is that it would be nice if the government had looked at it a different way, and I could have honestly said there was no indigenous activity on this. But the ball of light, I would say, if it wasn't okay, the only thing in my mind that I can think of is, when they tested Agent Orange?
Yep.
It was like something like that.
They were doing some strange testing.
Yes.
Well, I've held one little clue back. In fact, Darcy, just to see if you'd come through, and you've come through. At least one member, one victim's clothing had radiation on it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Something might have been being done there that the Soviet government didn't want known.
Yeah. But that would be absolutely 100% correct.
Wow. Well, there you go. The Dyatlov Pass incident. Remarkable. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We hope you've enjoyed listening to Seeing Dead People. Whatever's going on in Darcy's head, I think is so cool and astonishing. We'd love to hear from you with questions for Darcy about her psychic process, or suggestions for other mystifying situations you would like us to investigate. So please, shoot us an email to info@radiosydney.ca with Seeing Dead People in the subject line. New episodes of Seeing Dead People will emerge on the first Saturday of every month, and will also be available every Saturday night at 8 p.m. and Sunday morning at 10 a.m., both Pacific Standard Time. Seeing Dead People will also be available as a downloadable podcast online at radiosydney.ca for your convenience. Cool news! Seeing Dead People is now a podcast on YouTube. Just search for Nicola Furlong Mysteries, and you will find 3 podcasts of videos dedicated to Seeing Dead People. One for our actual complete episodes, another for Darcy's fascinating answers to our listeners' questions about her psychic process, and a third with teasers highlighting each episode. Thanks so much for listening to Seeing Dead People. I really dig researching, writing, and communicating with Darcy and her otherworldly contacts. So until the next time, remember, Seeing Dead People is a blast, with goosebumps guaranteed.
This has been a program of Radio Sydney.